So welcome to this episode, and today we are going to talk about decorative knobs and pulls, specifically hardware. And you may be asking, why is hardware important? Well, if you watched the last several videos, I love things that are not only decorative, but things that are functional. And hardware is one of those things that is undervalued, and also people really don't focus on it as much. So it's a forgotten element in your home that is small but makes a big impact. And in design, what's most important and what's really most memorable aren't often the big things, it is the details and the small things. So the reason why I love hardware and decorative pulls and why I think it's so important is because it's those details that really leave a lasting impact on your guest, but also act as a finishing touch to your overall design, decorative strategy intent. So hardware is a great way to introduce design, introduce texture, as well as introduce color into your home in a very affordable way. And so I have tons of friends who have either purchased furniture from the Salvation Army or have been gifted furniture from relatives that aren't as designer or aren't as modern as they would like. And one of the best ways to be able to modernize an old piece of furniture, such as like a sideboard, a chest, or a dresser, is to just change out the hardware. And it's a great way also to be able to make it a little bit more refined and introduce a bit of luxury or glamour, whether it's through rock crystal knobs or whether it's through cut stained glass knobs or even things that are just more shiny and colorful. So that's one of the reasons why I love hardware, is because it's a great affordable way to be able to update things that may not be as modern as you would like for them to be. And personally for me, I typically go for either hardware that is much more contemporary and clean lined, or I do have moments of organic shapes that look like jewels and that are a little bit more bolder pieces, because once again, my environment is pretty subtle in terms of color palette. It's pretty soothing, and so I look for things like art or things like hardware to show a contradiction to the cooling and calm and soothing parts of my home. And I use the art as well as I use hardware to show my colorful personality and my love of design and the other part of who I am, which is sometimes free-spirited and organic. So now you understand why drawer pulls and knobs are important. Before you actually go execute it, here's some things to remember. First, count the number of knobs that you want to replace in your home. This sounds like you would just automatically know to do this, but I can't tell you how many friends, clients, and even myself have made this mistake where we go out and we want to replace handles and we either underestimate or we overestimate the amount of knobs that are needed. So it sounds like something that's very simple, but if you are changing out knobs on your dresser drawer, count the number of drawers that you have. I would highly recommend that you get an additional quantity of 2 to 3, because you will most likely either break or you will either lose or something will happen. So there's nothing worse than going back to the store where you purchased the knobs from, and 6 months later that knob is no longer there and you can't get the replacement, and you either have to live without the knob or repurchase an entirely new set of knobs. And I'm sure you can definitely relate to this, because it's like finding the perfect fitting jean or the perfect shirt and you didn't buy a second one and you go back to replace it 6 months or a year later and they no longer exist, and it's so infuriating, right? I have that too, where you want it. So don't have that happen with your decorative hardware in your home. The next way for you to be able to execute and introduce hardware into your home is to make sure you actually take photos of your existing hardware. Sounds like something that you would just automatically do, but it's important for you to understand the scale and the size and the shape of the hardware that you actually have, so that as you look to replace, you need to know whether you should increase the scale and how big you can go, or if you need to go and use the exact same scale that you currently have today. So it's really important for you to have a photo reference of the actual doorknob or handle that you are looking to replace. So the third and final thing for you to consider as you're looking to execute hardware and handles and pulls into your home is to take a photo of an overall photo of the room that you are looking to introduce the new hardware handles, because it's really important for you to take a step back and look at it through your guest lens, as well as understanding how this new piece of hardware or pull or handle will impact the overall aesthetic and design of the room. So often people are very focused on the actual furniture or the fixture that they are updating with the hardware or handle, that they don't take a step back and think about the overall room design from a macro perspective. And this is really important because that one small element can make a really big impact on the room, and that impact can be good and sometimes it can be bad. So make sure that as you are out researching and looking to buy hardware for your room, that you really have a photo of the entire room so that you can understand the context in which that hardware will play to the overall design of the space. So I've had the exact same dresser and nightstand combination for the last 7 or 8 years, like I'm sure most of you have. And mine is a little bit more glamorous. It's mirrored and it looks aged and antiqued. And I've had it in a few different apartments and I really love it. My current apartment, actually, the bedroom is a little bit smaller than I would have liked for it to be. And I had to repurpose my nightstands in a different way. They just would not fit in my bedroom. So I decided to repurpose it and use it in my living room, and I created a bar. So I have 2 nightstands that I actually pushed together, and I have my wine display. I have a few of my favorite alcohol beverages. I love tequila, so I have a few different tequila bottles. And once I had it all set up, I just felt like, God, you know what? This just does not look like the Frank Sinatra bar that I wanted. And if I'm going to repurpose this, because I'm not getting rid of the nightstands, it just needs to look different. And so one of the ways that I updated a 7-year-old nightstand that was used in my bedroom is I actually changed out the hardware. I changed out the pulls to something that was more decorative versus like the traditional pulls. I went for something that was more crystal, so it felt a little more evening and it felt a little more special. And it completely changed this nightstand that was practical, functional for the bedroom, and actually made it a little more glamorous and appropriate how it's being used, which is now a bar. So that's just a really great example of how you can continually repurpose furniture that either you get or a purpose that you have in your home and utilize it differently and have it look different by changing out the hardware. Here are the top 5 things that you need to know before you start shopping for decorative hardware, drawer pulls, and handles. The first one is size. Make sure that you understand the size that you currently have in your home for those drawers and pulls and the size that you want to go to. Often you don't have much flexibility in terms of scale, so you want to make sure that you get something either the exact same size or something that's comparable. The second one is functionality. It's all about functionality, guys. When it comes to hardware, this is one thing that functionality trumps design first. So you need to make sure that you can turn it, you need to make sure that you can pull it, and that it's something that's going to be comfortable for you. So often people will get things that are overly decorative, and what they undervalue is that It's not very comfortable for them to actually use. They aren't able to grip it as well as they would like, or it's something that is completely not child friendly. So as you're looking to introduce new hardware, you want to make sure that you're thoughtful about functionality. The third one to consider is price, right? This is all about budget. And the way that your budget can become inflated is if you purchase too much, if you purchase more than you need. So we talked earlier about making sure that you actually quantify, that you actually do your count, that you understand how many drawer pulls you actually need. And so often I've seen clients, and I've even been a victim of this, where I've purchased double and sometimes triple the amount of handles or hardware that I actually need, and consequently it's a really large expense. And depending on where you go, either it's difficult to return, or they don't do returns, or there's some type of penalty. So save yourself the time, save yourself some money, only get exactly what you need and just a few more just in case you break it. Which leads into my fourth thing you need to know is buy a replacement. Buy a replacement. You need to plan for 1 to 2 to either break, for you to install it incorrectly, or for something to happen, because it's life, right? And so you're gonna have issues, and there's gonna be mistakes, and there's gonna be problems. So you need to make sure that you have a replacement. And then the fifth and final thing to consider is timeline. So you may actually want to purchase something that is a custom item. And custom doesn't always mean expensive when it comes to hardware. But a lot of times if you are replacing something that is similar scale or similar size to what you have, it may not be off the shelf. It may require for you to custom order it, and that may be something that is 6 weeks, it may be 8 weeks, it may be 10 weeks, or it may be 12 weeks. So you have to really understand what is your timeline and how comfortable you are with either having a longer timeline versus a shorter timeline, and that your design choice may be determined by the actual timeline or accessibility to the design style that you're looking for. So those are the 5 things that everyone should consider as you're looking to shop for hardware. I'm here today to talk to you about style and interior design. Hi guys, and welcome to this episode, which is focusing on art. And art is one of the things that I'm truly most passionate about, obsessive almost sometimes. So why is art important? Well, art is important for a few different reasons. One, it is a great way to introduce a color palette or a color